Have you ever felt like you're just drowning in information but absolutely starving for real wisdom? Well, today we are diving deep into Ken Wilber's integral theory. Now, I want you to think of it like a map of, well, everything. It's an incredibly powerful tool for making sense of our wild and complex world.
You know, it all starts with a question that I think a lot of us feel deep down. With all of our amazing scientific progress, all our material wealth, why is there still this nagging sense that something really, really important is missing?
And this right here is the central paradox of our time. On one hand, modernity gave us these incredible gifts: democracy, mind-blowing science, longer lives. But on the other hand, it seems to have left us with this profound sense of meaninglessness, a kind of disenchantment, and these deepening divisions. It's what Wilber calls both the dignity and the disaster of modernity, all rolled into one. So, how on earth did we get here?
Okay, so we've got a clear game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by diagnosing the problem, what Wilber calls Flatland, and then, piece by piece, we're going to build a whole new map to help us see reality in its full, incredible depth.
All right, first up, let's get a diagnosis of the modern world. Why does everything sometimes feel so, well, flat?
So Wilber's key idea here is this concept he calls Flatland. It's a world where only the external objective stuff, the things you can see and measure, are considered real. It's a universe of its. Just think about it: love, beauty, your own consciousness. In Flatland, those things are kind of suspect because you can't put them under a microscope. All that rich interior life gets pushed to the side, creating what he calls the disqualified universe.
But here's the thing, this didn't happen by accident. In fact, it started as modernity's single greatest achievement, separating these three huge spheres of life. We separated science from religion and art from both. And doing that allowed for an explosion of progress in each area. This was the absolute dignity of modernity.
But here comes the disaster part. After we pulled them apart, we completely failed to put them back together in a healthy way. Instead, science, the world of it, basically colonized the other two. Our inner lives, the I of our own consciousness and the we of our shared culture, they started being seen as less real, just fuzzy byproducts of brain chemistry or social forces. And just like that, the rich, deep cosmos collapsed into a flatland of just matter.
So if our old map led us straight into this flatland, it's pretty obvious we need a new one. And this is where Wilber's framework really starts to build a more complete, a more whole picture of reality.
This is the absolute foundation of the integral map. So Wilber argues that any event, anything, has four fundamental dimensions. You can see them by looking at it from an inside and an outside perspective, and for both individuals and groups. Let's make it real. Think about yourself, right now. You have your private thoughts, your feelings, your hopes. That's your I quadrant. At the same time, you have a physical body, behaviors that a doctor could observe. That's your it quadrant. But you're not an island. You share a language and cultural background with others. That's the we. And all of this is happening within larger social systems, like an economy or a government. That's the its. See? 4 dimensions to you, right now.
Now we can simplify this even further into what he calls the big 3. You've got the world of I, that's self-expression, art, beauty. Then you've got the world of we, that's all about morals, ethics, and culture. And finally, the world of it, the domain of science and objective facts. Flatland is simply what happens when you believe only the it world is real and you try to explain the beauty of I and the goodness of we using only the language of it. It just doesn't work.
Okay, so we have the 4 corners of our map. But things aren't static, right? Things change, they grow, they evolve. So what's the engine driving all that forward?
It all starts with this beautifully simple concept called the holon. A holon is anything that is simultaneously a whole in itself and a part of a larger whole. Everything is a holon. A letter is a whole, but it's also part of a word. A word is a whole, but it's also part of a sentence. You get the idea. It's wholes/parts all the way up and all the way down.
And these holons, they evolve through a very specific, secret pattern. They transcend and include. Each new level of development goes beyond, it transcends the one before it, but it also has to include it as a necessary part. A molecule is more than just a pile of atoms, but it's still made of atoms. A cell is way more than just a bag of molecules, but it absolutely needs them to exist. You see the pattern? You can't skip steps. This process creates what Wilber calls a holarchy, a nested order of increasing wholeness, increasing complexity, and increasing depth.
Now, it is crucial to get this. We're not talking about a ladder of domination here. This is a natural ranking of complexity. Cells are simply more complex than molecules. That's not a value judgment, it's just a description of reality.
All right, so now we have our map, the 4 quadrants, and we have the engine, transcend and include. So let's take it for a spin. Let's apply this lens to a really messy, real-world conflict.
Wilbur uses this framework to make sense of the ancient war between two fundamental paths. On one side, you have the ascenders. They value transcendence, spirit, the other world. Think traditional religion. On the other side, you have the descenders. They value this world, nature, the body, the senses. Think modern science or ecology. And for centuries, each side has seen the other as the enemy.
But here's the integral solution, and it's a game changer. The point isn't to pick a side. It's to see that both are essential, that both hold a piece of the truth. Wisdom needs compassion. Spirit needs to be grounded in nature. Because when you split them apart, you end up with either a lifeless, oppressive spirituality or a soulless, meaningless materialism. Neither one is the whole picture.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us right here, right now? How can we actually use this map to live a deeper, more whole, more integrated life?
Wilbur has this incredible quote that just lands the point with a punch. We complain about living in a meaningless world, but we created that meaninglessness by throwing out the I and the we, the entire interior half of reality. He's saying we can't really blame the universe for a problem that we ourselves created.
So the toolkit is actually simple, but it's profound. It's about consciously honoring all the dimensions of reality. In yourself, that means integrating your mind, your body, and your spirit. In our culture, it means valuing the truths of art and morality just as much as we value the objective truths of science. And in our relationship with nature, it means learning to see the world not just as a pile of resources, to be used up, but as a living expression of a deeper reality that deserves our care.
Look, the integral vision doesn't pretend to give you all the answers. It's not supposed to. But what it does give you is a much, much better map of the territory. It allows you to ask better questions, to see connections you never saw before. So the final thought I want to leave you with is this. In your own life, in your work, in your relationships, what problem could you finally solve if you just had a better map?